Hey all, this is Brown at I have Brown, and tonight we are going to be talking about the movie Slapface on DVD. Slapface came out in 2020 according to the DVD, but if you look it up on IMDb, it says 2021, so take your pick. But in either case, it was based on a short film from 2017 of the same name, and both the short film and the full-length movie were written and directed by Jeremiah Kipp. And considering that I got this movie kind of on a whim. It was on sale over at Movie Train Company, and based on little, but what I was able to read off of the back of the cover, the synopsis. I mean, this was actually a decent movie, and I felt like it did a good job of showing how abuse and mental trauma from family tragedy can be sources of horror in and of themselves. And also I thought that the lead characters were very well developed to a point where I was invested in the story and I wanted to see how things turned out, by the movie's end. But when it came to the supernatural side of things, I felt like they had a little bit too much in the way of ambiguity, because there were moments where I felt like they were trying to go for one thing, but it ended up looking like something else. And that's not to say that the horror aspect of the movie, when it comes to, say, the straight up supernatural part, was bad, but it's just the development could have used some work, in my opinion. So, that being said, this was, something that, I mean, considering I didn't know anything about it going in other than what I read on the back, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised, and I felt like, it was time well spent. It could have been, better, had they cleared some confusion up to the supernatural side of things, but at the same time, though, it was a decent movie. So if you find it on sale, I mean, it's definitely worth checking out. Or obviously, you can stream it if you want to do that. But if you're wanting to have it, physically on hand, a rental, or if it's on sale for cheap, definitely check it out. But let's go ahead and get into it. So, Slapface tells a story of a young kid named Lukas, who lives with his older brother in a sort of dilapidated house in a rural town, and in the surrounding woods, Lukas, finds one of the few spots of genuine refuge, in the sense that, he oftentimes keeps to himself, because, he and his brother, his older brother Tom, they had not that long ago experienced a genuine tragedy in the sense of having both their mother and their father die in a traffic accident. And while their father was very abusive towards, both of them and their mother was someone that, both Lukas and Tom loved very much. And so they were devastated by her death. And Tom does the best he can, to the best of his abilities, to try and raise him. But unfortunately, Tom is, in some ways a kid himself, a young adult, somewhere in his early 20s. But at the same time, I mean, just because, you're physically an adult, that doesn't always mean that, one is, say, mentally, ready to handle, the curveballs that life has to throw at you. I mean, case in point, I mean, they do care about each other, Lukas and Tom, but they have this strange tradition, stemming from when, their father abused them, and after, after both the father and the mother died in a traffic accident, Lukas and Tom have a strange, game that they play called Slapface, wherein one of them will slap the other, and then the other will slap, the other person back. And, in Tom's words, it's a way to keep things real, to kind of, keep them grounded in reality, but to those on the outside looking in, it just looks like straight up abuse. And in a lot of ways, it more or less is. I mean, regardless of rationale and logic. But outside of this, though, the only other people that Lukas seems to interact with are a group of 3 girls who bully him, and to a point of, say, physically, assaulting him, or just teasing him. But one of these bullies, a girl named let's see, Moriah, actually has a crush on him, and so the two of them have a sort of strange secret relationship. I mean, as far as what you could have with 2 little kids, right? A young boy and a young girl. But this is a strange relationship in the sense that, I mean, on the surface, she's one of his bullies, but when the other girls aren't around, she kind of tries to sneak some time with him, and vice versa. But this obviously is something that kind of has Lukas on edge, in the sense that he can never tell when Moriah actually is wanting to be with him because she likes him, or when she's about to try something because her other friends are telling her to, in a way of, say, bullying him. But he finds this place in the woods, a rather dilapidated estate, or a building of some sort, which may have been an institution of some kind at one point. But according to local legend, a witch named Virago lives there, or at the very least, she had lived in the area a long time ago, and supposedly she's responsible for a series of disappearances of other children throughout the years. But while there had been some genuine disappearances, she's mostly just kind of an urban legend for the area, or at least she's a bit of folklore, for the area. I feel weird saying urban legend because it's not an urban area; it's a rural area. But with this, interest in the supernatural that Lukas, has ignited, through doing some research, just through looking at stuff in the library, he's trying to see if maybe he can bring his mom back, whether in physical form or just in spirit form. And so he does this sort of improvised ritual where he takes a photo of her with him, and cuts his finger or his hand, and lets the blood hit the photo, and buries the photo. And this photo is buried in front of this building where Virago supposedly lives. And so one day, after having done this ritual, Lukas breaks in, and to his horror, he finds out that there is a witch in there. Because first he finds this sort of shrine, filled with occult paraphernalia, and then he finds her. And so at first, I mean, this is something that terrifies him. But the two of them actually form a sort of strange friendship, because at first, she kind of treats him as an intruder, but then, she kind of, picks up on the fact that, this is someone who, is alone like her. And so she kind of, seems to look upon him as, if not, say, a surrogate son, then at least, a friend of some sort. And so, Lukas, he'll be finding reasons, to go into the woods where this building is, to find Virago. And even though she never talks to him, she seems to understand what he's saying. And, the two of them, they, basically, sort of, they're there for each other, but unfortunately, though, when the stress of Lukas's everyday life, but being bullied by the girls, and also, being at odds with his brother, it takes a toll on him, to a point where Virago begins to say, take an interest in protecting him, but in a way that leaves a trail of bodies, in her wake. And when people start disappearing, and people actually start dying, as well as, say, animals start dying, such as, say, a dog that just happened to be in the area that was chasing Lukas, but Virago killed said dog, and his dog turned out to belong to, a family. Well, people are starting to ask questions, and so it gets to a point where, things are kind of coming to a head, and Lukas has to figure out, what can he do to get out of the situation he's in, as well as, how can he, is there a way he can get Virago away from the danger of the situation as well, because he wants to believe that, she's not evil, just maybe misunderstood, and she's acting out to try and protect him, but at the same time, though, with this body count that's, coming up, and the danger that's very real, I mean, he's, having, the mental trauma and the emotional trauma, added of the situation, added to what's already going on with him in his, regular life. And so, yeah, all in all, though, I thought that this was a, interesting movie because it showed how family tragedy and emotional and physical abuse, can definitely, shape someone, especially in their formative years, and turn them into someone, or at the very least, push them into being someone, who lashes out at the world, or at the very least, feels that they have little to no place in the world, but when they find someone, or, that, sort of stands up for them, whether this person's a good person or a bad person, they look up to this person. And with the case of Virago, we have, someone who is a genuine monster. I mean, she's a witch, and I mean, straight out of folklore, but at the same time, though, there's no denying that, whether she's good or evil, I mean, she does, have a connection to Lukas. She does care about him. So even though she doesn't say anything in the movie, we see through, say, physical mannerisms and movement and what, like, just basically straight up physical performance, this is a character who does care about Lukas. And, Lukas, sees her as a friend. But unfortunately, I mean, for him, he also he comes to realize that having a monster for a friend, is something that has, unintended consequences, for, those around them. And so it was fascinating seeing Lukas, kind of go through this experience, because there are some very endearing moments with him and Virago. And the funny thing is that, there are more, I guess you could say, moving moments, with him and the monster than there are with him and, say, his fellow human beings. Like, I mean, even, say, with his, girlfriend slash bully, Moriah, I mean, there are some cute moments between the two of them when she's not bullying him, but at the same time, though, it's still awkward, because we sense that he's on edge, because he doesn't know, when or if he can fully trust her. So even though he does have a crush on Moriah, and she does like him too, he never knows, when she's for real and when she's trying to set him up for something. And so when he, makes friends with the witch Virago, I mean, she's someone, for better or worse, that he can actually, relax around and let his guard down for a bit, although he still has to keep his guard up in a sense of, having to try and make sure no one sees the two of them, or sees her, because, if they see a monster, then, what do you think people are going to do, right? So, playing Lukas was an actor named August Maturo, and I I don't think I myself have seen him in anything personally, but he was apparently in the horror movie The Nun. But he's a very good child actor, and he definitely does a good job playing the lead role. And I definitely felt for his character, and I came to care about him, and I wanted to see, I was hoping that his story would turn out okay. I mean, I know this is a horror movie, so you're just kind of like, okay, you really think things are going to turn out okay? I mean, I figured there probably wasn't going to be a happy ending, but at the very least, I was wanting to see him come out of it okay, if that makes any sense. Like, I cared about the kid, and August Maturo did a good job of bringing this young man to life. And I also liked the character of Tom, Lucas's older brother, because while he is in some ways an abusive individual himself, it's not that it's interesting because he doesn't see himself as being abusive. Like, he sees himself as trying to keep both himself and his younger brother grounded in reality. Because I mean, he's the only one that is basically their security, at least in his eyes. Like, I mean, he's the one who's putting food on the table and keeping a roof over their heads. What with their parents being gone, like, he's had to step up to basically become an adult much sooner than he had intended, because with his parents dead, I mean, there was no one else to step up. But and he certainly didn't want his brother to be taken away to a foster home. But we do see moments where, I mean, he genuinely does care about Lukas. Like when he playfully offers him some dating advice and things like that. And also we see, I guess you could say, a more relaxed version of himself when he comes into contact with a girl named Anna, and Anna in turn is played by Libe I hope I'm saying her name right. But he meets her at a bar, and the two of them eventually form a relationship, and she ends up moving in with them. And the dynamic between the two of them is for the most part rather endearing. And we initially see that she's bringing out a part of him that is more at ease, and so we kind of see the person that he used to be when he's with her. But unfortunately, though, the reality of the situation doesn't allow for things to last, or it doesn't allow for this, say, endearing phase of the relationship to last. But playing Tom was an actor named Mike Manning, and he looks familiar. I'm not sure if I've actually seen him in anything, but he has one of those faces that looks very familiar. But he was a really good actor, or he did very well in the part. And I felt like we got someone who, like, in his own way was abusive, but he didn't see himself as being abusive. And it was kind of like a villain who doesn't see himself as a villain, except I wouldn't go so far as to call him a villain, but at the same time, though, it's made very clear that his idea of keeping himself and Lukas grounded is adding to the trauma of Luke's mental state, or Lukas's mental state, and in some ways his own as well. And I thought that sorry, get the name right. Mike Manning did a good job playing the part, because I mean, he could have just played Tom as, a total scumbag, but we can't really bring ourselves to hate him. I mean, he's definitely someone that, I mean, is in the wrong for, say, the level of, physical violence that he displays towards, Lukas. But at the same time, though, when we understand, get an understanding of his character and his situation, we do feel some pity for him. And when we see the moments where, he's actually, when he's actually, say, closer to the person he used to be, the older brother that Lukas used to look up to, I mean, we kind of see, the further tragedy of the situation. Like, this is someone that, was a good brother, or was a good person at one point, and that good person isn't entirely gone, but because he's thrown into a situation, into a position of a caretaker, at a point in life where he himself isn't ready to step up, but is in a position where he has to. I mean, he's a character that I think we understand, and in some ways sympathize, feels, if we don't feel straight up sympathy for him, we can at least understand him. And that's why I think Manning was another one of the good actors in this movie, with his role as Tom. And for Anna, the actress Libe Berar, I hope I'm saying her name right. I initially felt like, the way, her character came into the story, like in a sense that, she meets Tom at this bar, and then shortly thereafter has moved in with him and Lukas. And I guess I was kind of confused because, in terms of, say, the transition of time, it didn't look like a lot of time had passed, and maybe, not a lot of time has passed. But at the same time, she has really good chemistry with Manning. Libe, has, really good chemistry with, Mike Manning. And so you really buy that, the two of them have an attraction to one another. And you also see her kind of try to step into the role as a sort of mother figure for Lukas. But unfortunately, it's kind of a one-sided thing, because, Lukas, isn't seeing her as the motherly sort, even though she is trying. And so we have a character who, is a little she's in over her head just a little bit, but at the same time, because she is trying, and, she's got a genuine sweetness to her, I mean, she doesn't feel out of place, once, she's established herself in the story. And it turns out that she's actually a Wiccan, and, she tries to, sort of, put Lukas at ease, because, she kind of gets the idea that he's interested in the supernatural. And when she picks up on this, she tries to, sort of, say, hey, I'm into that too, And so it's like she does try to bond with Lukas. And so even though he doesn't, see her, as, say, the motherly figure that she's wanting to be for him, he does come to care about her in his own way. But so yeah, I mean, she was a good character too. And when it came to the three bullies, they did a good job, of kind of reminding me of how cruel kids could be. I mean, we're not talking like, say, deranged, like, say, the bullies from the movie It or anything like that, but it was more like, say, casual juvenile cruelty. And so so the actresses who played the bullies, did a pretty good job. And the funny thing is, two of the bullies are twins, and the actors playing them are twins as well. And so, yeah, Bianca D'Ambrosio and Chiara D'Ambrosio are the actresses playing the bullies Donna and Rose. And you definitely buy that they're sisters because, well, they are sisters playing sisters, but they are mean. And it definitely brought back, some, memories from, say, elementary school, because, I mean, there were definitely some, mean girls in elementary school. And so it's kind of like, yeah, I remember some of that stuff, but I mean, there were some nice girls too, but yeah, kids back in the day, they could be cruel. But then when it came to say the character of Moriah, the actress Mirabelle Lee, I mean, I thought she did a pretty good job with the part that she had to play in the sense that I mean she was a bully, for Lukas, but she also had a crush on him. And so, she did a pretty good job of managing that balancing act. And we saw that she really did like him, but at the same time, though, I mean, she couldn't let her friends know that she actually did like him because, well, they're, you know, they're the bullies, right? And they're supposed to be, making his life a living hell, right? But it was interesting seeing her, play, that particular, type of character, because, we definitely bought the fact that she was kind of, someone who was wearing two faces, and, in a sense, both faces were real. But I mean, but she was another, actress who I thought was a good child actor. And when it came to say, the monster Virago, it's actually, believe it or not, it's actually a man playing the witch. It's a guy named Lukas Hassel, but I wouldn't have known that it was a guy playing, the witch, because they did a good job with, the costume and the makeup, and basically make him look like, an old hag, and physically speaking, I mean, he does a good job with, the movement and mannerisms, and kind of like, I mean, it kind of made me think of the actor, I think his name was Doug Jones, who, played Pan in Pan's Labyrinth, like with some of the movements and what have you, except Doug Jones was, a lot more verbose, but, Lukas Hassel, I mean, he doesn't say anything as the witch. The witch doesn't say anything, just sort of, growls and, grunts, mind you. But with his physical performance, though, along with, the costuming and the, makeup, I mean, you definitely bought the fact that, this was a witch that, is in this world, and, sort of walking the earth. And I found, like, myself in some ways, kind of warming up to Virago, simply because, I mean, it's made very clear that she does care about Lukas, right? But at the same time, though, I was also a bit on edge with her character, because we see that, I mean, while she does care about Lukas, make no mistake, she is a witch, who is not above, making people, quote unquote, disappear in a rather, bloody way at times, but, it was definitely an interesting, creation on screen for sure. And, and the chemistry that, the character of Virago had with the character of Lukas, was believable. And a lot of that was down to the acting of August Maturo and as Lukas, and Lukas Hassel as Virago. But definitely a good dynamic between the two. And the character actor Dan Hedaya plays the town sheriff, Sheriff Thurston, and his part wasn't huge, but there are some scenes where, I mean, we kind of get a little bit of exposition from him in terms of, say, the background, of Lukas and Tom. And there's a scene or two where we hear just how bad the abuse was that their father made him endure. So Dan Hedaya does a good job of playing the sheriff as sort of an exposition device, but at the same time we get that this is a guy who he's been a sheriff for so long that he's definitely seen some things, and a lot of bad things. Like, he's seen the dark side that this town has to offer, but nonetheless, I mean, he does try to keep an eye on things. He does try to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself, what with, say, people being abused by family members and what have you. But unfortunately, he's not aware of the game that Tom plays with Lukas, the Slapface game, because he probably would have something to say about that. But even when, say, things get more intense and Lukas is brought into the interrogation room at the police station, Dan plays the sheriff in a way that you do see the compassion of his character for the young boy in the situation he's in. But at the same time, though, we also see someone who's a figure of authority who's trying to get the truth of the situation from Lukas. And so definitely someone who was believable as a figure of authority. And Hedaya, even though it wasn't a huge part, did a good job with what he had to work with, I think. But I think that they also did a nice job of making the area a believable place to film in, because this really did look like a rural town, and some of it was, from what I understand. So it definitely felt like a place that had some reality to it, if that makes sense. And the music score by give me a sec, Barry J. Neely, was something that I thought kind of added to the tone of things. Like, it was very somber, and at times, I mean, depending on what was going on, there was something that was between heartwarming and spooky. And considering the relationship between Lukas and Virago, I mean, I thought that was rather appropriate. But when it came to say the camera work, capturing, say, the scenery of the woods, there'll be moments where like it's really beautiful, but there's like an ominous feel to it, and it's like the camera work kind of goes hand in hand with the music, to sort of have that feeling of, I mean, yeah, it's some nice scenery, but something's not quite right here, that kind of thing. Like, you're on edge, but at the same time you're sort of appreciating the beauty of the scenery, if that makes sense. So it's like you can't let your guard down, but at the same time you can't deny that, I mean, yeah, there's some nice stuff to look at here. But anyway, though, when it came to, say, the areas where the movie struggled, I think it's also having to do with Virago, because I feel like the exposition we got as to who and what Virago was left something to be desired, because we get some newspaper clippings in regards to, say, the disappearances of children throughout the years, and or even just adults as well, but say some supposed eyewitness accounts, and we have some brief glimpses of sketches of what the witnesses saw, and so it's like we get a face of Virago on one of the newspapers, and things like that. But I mean, we understand that Virago is a witch that's been around for a long time. If some of the um, old history, books that some of the characters find in the library are excuse me, are any indication. I mean, she's definitely something that does exist. Okay, but a lot of the exposition that we get about her, it's kind of rushed, and it's very abbreviated. And I for one would have liked to have found out exactly what her history was. Like, I mean, did she first exist, say, um, in the years that were listed in the books, like, say, going back to, say, the 1700s or 1800s or something like that, or has she been around for longer than that? And it's so it's kind of a tantalizing glimpse, the stuff that we do get about her, but it's not really a lot in the way of, say, telling us who exactly she is and how she came to be. Like, we know that she's a witch, and she almost certainly had something to do, with the disappearances, throughout the years. But at the same time, though, I mean, is she someone that is consciously evil? That part I felt like we don't quite get enough of in terms of, say, trying to understand the character. Um, and another problem with that is the fact that the filmmakers seem to be trying to say that Lukas and Virago may actually be one and the same. Like, Virago may in fact be, say, an imaginary friend that Lukas has created for himself. Like, I mean, yes, there was this folklore and this legend about Virago, and she may have existed all those years ago, but maybe in his depression, and sadness and utter desperation of, say, trying to do a makeshift occult ritual to bring his mom back. I mean, it's like the filmmakers are trying to say that maybe this is a way for him to cope with the grief and everything, and he's crafted an imaginary friend for himself who happens to be maternal, as in, say, like a mother, because that's someone that he needs, because he misses his mom. And so Virago, ironically, turns out to be a rather motherly character for him, but at the same time, she's someone that poses a genuine danger to those around her, because, I mean, she is a monster. But the thing is, it's like there are some scenes that are shot in such a way to where it's kind of implying, they seem to be implying that Lukas and Virago, I mean, what one of them experiences, the other does as well. Like, say, if Tom slaps Lukas in the face, Virago feels it or something like that. Or if Lukas is having to bind his wounded hand, Virago is having to do something with it too, with her hand. And so there were some scenes I just felt like, I mean, they were trying to imply that the two of them were one and the same, or at the very least she had basically become a part of him with his imagination. But then again, there are scenes where when, say, Virago attacks or kills someone, we clearly see Virago doing it, and the way the actors are the ones playing the people that she attacks or kills, they're clearly looking up at her. Like, they're not, like, say, looking at eye level or looking down, like, say, if they were looking at a little kid or something. Like, they're looking up, as in they're seeing, something that's clearly, taller than them, right? And Lucas is not taller than them. And we do see her attack or kill certain characters in the movie. And so then it's kind of like, okay, are you trying to say, like, so it sort of went back and forth, like, it seemed to go, one way in some scenes where they're trying to imply that Lucas and Virago were, one and the same, with her being an imaginary friend for him. But then on the other hand, they seem to be showing that Virago was something very real, because I mean, she was, clearly, hurting or killing certain characters in the movie. um, so yeah, I mean, I just think that, had they had a scene, like, maybe, towards the end of the movie, just clarifying that, in fact, like, maybe say, have Virago, Lucas, and another character all be in the same room together, and therefore, clearly establishing that, Lucas was not, just seeing things. Like, Virago is something, someone that does exist outside of Lucas's imagination, because she's always been in the woods, that kind of thing. And then you'd have that other character, in this scene, just be like, oh my God, Lucas was telling the truth, or something like that. I mean, if they had something like that, I feel like, I mean, there'd be a little less confusion, because, the way they filmed some of these scenes, I feel like they were trying to go for ambiguity, but instead just ended up being confusing, at least for me anyway. But other than that, though, I think that, let's see, if there was one other problem I would say that kept the movie from being good, I mean, I would say, like, the way they showed time transitioning, because, I mean, while I like the character of Anna, Tom's girlfriend, I did like her character, but I felt like, she, came to live with them, rather too quickly. Like, they didn't really show, say, much in the way of passing time, in the way of, say, having her, become a part of their lives. And also, it was kind of hard to tell for me, at least at certain points, where, like, how much time has passed, between certain events in the movie. Like, we know it's a couple of days, but we don't know exactly how many days. Because the way that some scenes are shot, it seems to imply that, say, several weeks have passed, but at the same time, though, it doesn't look like much, but say a couple of days has passed, or excuse me, have passed. And so I just think that maybe in terms of, say, like, editing, I mean, they could have spruced some stuff up to where we had a better, understanding of exactly how much time has transpired throughout the movie. But yeah, I just think that, going forward, the filmmakers, I mean, if they do a better job with editing in their next movie, in terms of, say, showing the transition of time, or when it comes to, say, horror, if they do another horror movie after this one, maybe have some, scenes that clear some stuff up, in terms of, say, is the monster something real, or is it, say, a figment of one of the characters' imaginations, or excuse me, a figment of one of the characters' imagination. So I just think that going forward, maybe they could just kind of take some notes from, Slapface, and maybe do a better job in the next movie. But all in all, though, I think this was a decent movie, and they definitely did a better job of developing, say, the human story than the supernatural story. Not to say that the supernatural story with it was without its merits, but the human story felt more immediate. And so I'm gonna go ahead and give Slapface 3 out of 5 stars. This was a decent movie. And as far as special features go, we have Slapface behind the scenes, and you have like, sort of run of the mill when it comes to, say, showing like how some of the stuff was shot, and how some of the people behind the scenes and in front of the camera were talking about their experiences. And then we also have cast and director a Q&A video, and this was something that I enjoyed seeing, because we see some of the people involved in this movie just kind of in a relaxed mood, reminiscing about their time making the movie, and you find out some interesting stuff. And one of the things that's kind of endearing about it is that, I mean, whether or not you think the movie's good, I mean, the people who made the movie, genuinely had a good time making it, and really came to value their relationships and experiences with those that they worked with while making this movie. So that was pretty cool to see. And you also have a behind the scenes photo gallery. So yeah, that was Slapface. Once again, 3 out of 5 stars. So thank you very much for taking the time to check out my review. And you got any questions, comments, please drop a line and let me know. And if you like what you see here, feel free to like and subscribe. So y'all take care. Have a good night. Bye.